so far we've been getting to know her and finding out about her background, but before we turn to more details about your charity, we want to take a look at some background and the issue of forced marriage. So we've got some statistics for you just to let you know what the issues right now currently are. Now we'll start with the first bit of statistics for you. Now, here we go. Now, last year, 1,302 people asked for advice on the issue of forced marriage. Now, these statistics are given to us from the Forced Marriage Unit. There was also 15% of those cases, now they thought they were involved, under 16-year-olds. That is just phenomenal. We'll go through this all in a bit, Aneeta. And then next up, just one last bit of statistics. Right, now, it also involved 70 people with the backgrounds from 74 countries. Now, it was all UK cases, yes, but the background 74 countries, so it could be anywhere from around the world. And just really quickly, shockingly, it involved children from the ages of 2 years old up until 71. How on earth? Okay, let's talk me through this. How on earth could it range from so young to so old?
I think one of the things that people don't realise when they look at forced marriage, they try to put it in a little box because it's easier to deal with and can't just try and list maybe Southeast Asian countries. It isn't true. I mean, one of the things I do when we go into schools and talk about forced marriage is I put that statistic up about from 2 to 71. You know, and we ask how young is the youngest person that could have potentially been forced into a marriage, or it was being talked about and they needed to call and ask for help. I think, you know, when we look at forced marriage in young people, we're looking at child abuse. And I think that's got to be really clear and really understanding what a forced marriage is. It is child abuse. If you're forcing somebody to get married as a young person against their will, under the age of 16, 18, then that's got to be wrong.
So, so talk me through this. How are children as young as 2 affected in this way? What sort of role do they play in all of this?
Well, you know, when you're growing up, the people you should be able to trust more than anybody in the world are your mum and dad, and your parents and your family and your brothers and your sisters. They're the people you should be able to trust. The perpetrators of this forced marriage are those exact same people that are forcing their children to get married to often family members, cousins, other people, against their will. And often that young person hasn't got the capacity to say no. They don't even know to say no. They don't even know. I mean, we have people getting forced into marriages and they're saying, example, a few weeks ago someone phoned up and said they were going on holiday to a family wedding and that was fine, and then they got a bit scared about it. They did go abroad and it was their wedding and they were getting married to their first cousin, and they had no knowledge of this at all.
What happened there then? Were they able to come back? Did they have to stay in this country? What country was this, sorry?
This was in Bangladesh, but they did manage to get rescued and they are back in the UK.
How did that happen? How were they rescued?
There was a lot of organisation behind it. I'll give you an example. We had a young girl who was 17, 18. Her boyfriend phones up out of complete desperation. He's called the police on 2 or 3 occasions, said his girlfriend's gone missing. He believed he'd been taken aboard to Islamabad and got forced into a marriage. The police said, don't be ridiculous, and sent him away. This is in London. This is in 2014, where you wouldn't think this is going to happen.
This year?
This year. He, out of desperation, calls up the Freedom Charity 24-hour helpline, gets through. Vanita starts dealing with the call, and we work very closely with the Forced Marriage Unit on this as well, and eventually she gets rescued. But in the process of her coming back to the UK, she's been serially raped, she's been horrendously attacked, she's going through severe psychological damage, and she comes back to the UK with nothing. She can't go back to her parents because they'll send her straight back. You know, this poor girl's life is in complete tatters and it has to be rebuilt. For us as a charity, we have to deal with prevention. We have to stop this happening before it even starts. So when we look at the figures, behind every one of those is a human tragedy of somebody's life that's been completely ruined, and it's going to take a lot of effort to build it back up again.
And I guess it takes people actually knowing about your charity and getting in touch with you to let you know of their stories, of their cases, and
asking for help. You know, picking up the phone or texting is a really difficult thing to do, so you try and make it as easy as you can. And knowing that people can pick up the phone 24 hours a day, they can text, and we know a lot of young people, they're incessantly texting all the time. We've even put an app out just to ensure that there's every medium available for someone in danger just to call up.
So how can people know about Freedom? How can people get in touch?
Well, they can go to It's a really simple way of doing it. It's a call to the helpline, which I know the details will be given later, but they can go to the Freedom Charity website right now, just freedomcharity.org.uk, and they'll be immediately put in touch with someone that's going to offer them help. And we work with lots of other agencies. We work really closely with the police. We work incredibly closely with the Forced Marriage Unit, who do a fantastic job, and other charities in the sector as well. So, you know, we work in partnership to try and get people back, but prevent it from happening in the first place.
I mean, you say that, and obviously there's been so much dishonoured violence in the media, quite shocking cases, but I don't understand how the police still don't know as much as they should do, and they're still turning away people asking for help in this area.
The only way it's going to change is through training, and we're putting on a big national training programme, so we're working with police forces across the UK, but predominantly in London, to ensure that every police officer knows what they're talking about and knows how to record it. But you're almost at one police officer just making a mistake or not really knowing the issue could lead to a tragedy. So it's trying to get through to every PC, every PCSO, any contact. But it's not only the police. People contact their GPs. People go to social workers in schools. So our programme is across the fields to anybody that has contact. So it's frontline staff that have contact and volunteers that have contact with anybody that could happen. And one of the reasons of going into schools and talking to young people about forced marriage, and we've been into, you know, almost 100 school nails across the UK, but mainly in London. And when we're going into schools, we're targeting our message at the best friend. The best friend could be anybody. And you don't know in life who you're going to come across. So if you educate the best friend, and that could then be the victim as well. The victims don't know they're often victims. So we're talking to anybody in the schools that will listen. And when we do assemblies, they're often up to 1,000 students at a time, and that message gets spread very quickly. We're also working with universities and teacher trainers. So the message is being spread, and knowing what the consequences of doing nothing. And we say to all our young people, doing nothing isn't an option. When you hear about it, you have the power to make a difference and stop this happening to somebody you know.